Hello, Michel. We are here with an audience for engadinarttalks. I'm really very happy to present you to our audience because you are really the perfect artist for our theme, La Longue Durée. We just will come back to this. I will now ask you a few questions before Adam Chimchik is going to present your work as a filmmaker, video artist, a bit more in depth. Adam Chimchik, who really knows your work very well, has presented you at the Documenta and before at the Kunsthalle in Basel. And also he invited you to install a wonderful work in a garage in a building in the Engadin, not far from Zuotz. And I know you have spent some time a year ago with Christine Binswanger, who actually lives in the building and invited you and presented you to Roger Diener, who is the architect. So, Longue Durée, I just would like to ask you how it was in the 60s when you got your first camera, which was a video camera, the famous mythic Sony Portapack, which I think was crucial for your practice. Then to go deeply involve into the making of diaries, as one says in French, journal intime, which is such a beautiful word, journal intime, for a practice where things are happening in front of a camera and you don't know how they evolve. You just push a button and let go, let the image, the flow of the event which is happening come into the camera and record it. And just to yes, ask you about Longue Durée. Of course, before the video for, let's say, for home movie practice, um, it was all uh, uh,
3 minutes.
reels of 3 minutes, and
Yeah.
it cost a lot. And
Mhm.
video suddenly was cheap. So yes, tell
Yeah,
us.
that was a revelation because I did from the early 60s to the late 60s use film 3 minute films on a Bolex or like this and yeah, it was really what I wanted to do is to be able to film and look at the film right away and not going through a laboratory and everything. And that was like revelation to have this machine that just came up on the market. And uh, I also, I think uh, I use the diary style and the documentary style, not to make document or specifically diaries, but they are some kind of a diary and intime also, and maybe sometime too intime to be even like to be used, but it just to build a vocabulary really right away. And I would turn on the camera. I was very lucky because I evolved into the world of Andy Warhol, not so close to him, but with his superstar. And they came and visit all the time, and they're very talented in speaking all the time about different things, politically, all kind of incredible stories. So I was able to kind of record their interpretation of life. And of course, also the birth of my daughter, and yeah, at the end, it's a diary because that's the style. Every day I film some, and at length, it would be the same with the film. It would be only 3 minutes at a time, little bursts of this, of that, sketches that just been built up. But this was like more in a way. I felt like it was more literary in some way. That means like I was writing long segments of things. They would become interesting by themselves. They also could be looked at and taken a few parts and make a new story out of it, with people saying something about, I don't know, Nixon, so, watching television, and there were like riots in Ireland. And then kids were playing, 1-year-old kid were playing on the floor, eating yogurt, full of yogurt. And then like, you know, so it's just becoming incredibly exciting for me. And if you talk about LongueDurée, this is like 60, almost 60 years of recording with video. So it's a very long durée with thousands of hours.
Yes. And Adam is going to tell us how you really started to have little notebooks and recording I mean, writing down what you recorded, so that you then have a lists about where you can find which piece of film. And it's like a huge archive today.
Like,
Um,
like this, you know, like I still use it, but much less. But I still use my notes, you know, like this. And but then, because the computer, you can make in 2000 the computer came in, so it was a bit different, the system. But up to that time, I would just, every time I had a few hours of video, I would look at it and yes, make a note, like I would making a script, what's good inside and everything, and also to remind me the content, because I have so much content. And then I have piles of book like this, handwritten, especially from you know, the 1970 to 1999, until I finally got to everything is written on books. Yeah, I mean, not everything, but my notes. And of course, I realized that I made the notes, but sometimes when I looked at the tape again, my notes were interesting to put me in time for the thing, but I realized there was something, as the time goes, I realized something was more interesting, even than what I made a note, a sound, something on television, an image that passed me. And that was maybe like, oh, this, yeah, it's even better than that, you know, like.
Mhm. So for the work in the garage in Champfèr, how did you proceed? It's a collage of different bits of moments of time.
Yeah, I think I thought of it as a garage, and people come in from whatever, skiing, or they're coming because they live there and relaxing, or and I mean, you can't ask too much from somebody coming into the garage with family, the children, everything. So I made very short segment, more like based really on short stories, but really short. So it was different emotions, you know, like you see like the countryside, sometimes you see children again, because I'm always interested in children. They're always around, or less now, but you know. And I mean, it's just the opera of the world is still coming out, like, so. And I made it more musical. Maybe there was a sound, there's always a bit of music coming in the background or something like this. There's some picked up music from far away, usually not directly. So yeah, so like, you know, it covers, I don't know how to explain it too much. It was just I wanted to send some emotions into people as they traverse or this garage and leave the garage to go home. I don't know if I'm successful to it, but that was my aim, in a way.
So basically this arrow is already pointing to the piece. I mean the Wegweiser.
Because the piece is called...
Because the piece is called Champfèr Garage Opera. And these are the houses over there. And it's in the garage of the house on the right hand side. Well, I was director at Champfèr Basel from I think 2003 or 2004, and while running Champfèr Basel, I met several people, and among them Christine and Roger, who built these houses. And at some point, an idea appeared to install artworks in public spaces of the houses, which are primarily staircases and in the end the garage as well, because that's where many people arrive with their cars to unload their gear and indulge in their activities in the mountains. So in the garage we are in the kind of subterranean zone of the house, which is to be forgotten quickly, and that's where I thought to invite Michel Auder to come up with a new work, a video work, basically, because that's what Michel has been doing for the past 50 years now. A few years down the line, I invited Michel to have a big solo show at Champfèr Basel. And the year was 2013, I think. And we did a show consisting of several individual single-channel video works covering pretty much the whole span of his production, from a very early work made, I think, in around 1972 or so, the Morocco Chronicles, to more recent works, which varied in length, subject matter, and technology used in the filming, because Michel is somebody who is not unaware of the formal qualities of each video technology that he has been using for the past 50 years, but he's not a fetishist of one or another format of video. So he started with, say, Sony Portapack, to then shift to other formats that were becoming available as technologies evolved. And most recently he's using a very common and available to all form of filming, which is via mobile telephone. You know, and this type of image, which is quite immediate, instantaneous, that's something that he's been very keen on using always, because what appealed to him, I think, in the format of video is the immediacy of the medium, and that it allows to record pretty much everything that is happening in your daily life. And also, of course, some situations might be micro-staged, but a lot of it is just, you know, things as they happen. And things as they happen are two things. One thing is that what really, so to say, happens around you, which is people around you and views around you, and as you move through landscapes and situations, and the other thing is the material that is already pre-recorded, because as we know, we are surrounded by images, and this has been going on already for a good 50 or 60 years with television. And Michel is someone who has always been a very astute observer of television. So there are some remarkable moments on television, the Apollo landing, maybe he didn't record that, but the riots, the Twin Towers tumbling, and so on and so forth, and somehow the TV is always with us or with him, and he's been filming it and sort of filtering the content delivered to us by advertisers, who in turn deliver us as a product of television into something that has a subversive edge to it, and it kind of overturns this pre-formatted content into something that becomes poetic or political or whatsoever personal. So in the work in the garage downstairs, we have 2 channels, and that together comprise what Michel called for the occasion Champfèr Garage Opera, which is an interesting choice of genre, because why opera in relation to video? And this is something that makes me think of a larger term, of something like opera mundi, the opera of the world. The opera mundi is basically what happens in the world at large. It's not only what happens on stage, this or that narration, story, drama, the death of the heroine at the very end and so forth, but it's a larger, practically unlimited set of events happening in the world near to us and far away, and not of all of those events we are aware, but through the material that Michel gathered during the past 50 years, we are immersed in the life of one person and in lives of other people who met, in one way or another, encountered this person or were a subject of his passing glance when he was filming them. It could be people that he knew, some people who are famous, like Andy Warhol, who appears very briefly. But there are also people who are completely unknown, who were filmed maybe only for 5 seconds because they were in an interesting way asleep on the train, or they sort of moved through the eye of the camera very briefly. And this becomes a matter from which to mold this Champfèr Garage Opera. Michel understands his work more as that of a poet than, let's say, filmmaker. Well, in which sense a poet, not in a sense of writing poems which can be rhymed or not rhymed, but more in the sense of a kind of fundamental quality of poiesis, which is kind of world making. It's a kind of activity of bringing something forth that did not exist before and giving it some form, and this form can take many different forms. So it kind of relates to what I said before, that he's not married to one or another format of video art. He would not see himself as somebody who is one of the big family of video artists of the world uniting, but he's a very Einzelgänger, kind of he's a little bit a separate acting subject on this scene of video art, mainly through the fact that in the meantime he's one of the few living artists who have been working with video for such an incredibly long time. So we are talking of someone who, grabbed the video camera around the time when Andy Warhol grabbed his and Woody and Steiner Basulka grabbed theirs, and so forth. And it's not about who was there first, but it's that moment and that generation. And he made a very different use of the video than all those other artists, and namely he used it in, I would say, a diaristic manner. So he recorded daily tons of material, and he kept a very precise record of that material in form of little notebooks in which the time codes are written down and the content of sequences and the possible use of the sequence within a larger project. And on the one hand you have the original material, which is videotapes. On the other hand you have the library of black notebooks in which the content of those tapes is meticulously written down up to a certain moment when this is probably replaced by the computer, you know, so he can sort of record the content and purpose of his video recordings also on the computer, and eventually he can bring all the material down to some sort of hard disks and sort of digitize it, which is partly done but not entirely done. So there's still some material that is on some now nearly undecipherable videotapes of obsolete kind that would need like special players and, you know, special treatments to really retrieve the material recorded. And one interesting thing is that Michel works on the one hand daily, and on the other hand he works on a kind of larger time span, and, you know, which is where we arrive to this notion of durée or LongueDurée, which I believe is something that interests you in your program this year. And this is spot on, I think, in relation to Michel's production, because as he's recording daily, he's not producing work which are of immediate nature, that are like quick, you know, records of what happened and they are immediately released or shown somewhere. And he doesn't work mostly through, you know, the system of commissions where he would make a new piece out of the material that he would record in the days preceding or months preceding. He would always reach back to the material, you know, made 30 years ago, or 30 years before, 50 years before, 12 years before, and so on and so forth. So it's, in a way, this poetic activity is also working within this time span that is available to him, which is practically his life, and from the moment he got the camera in his hand until today, when he still has it in his hand, and that's it.